redistributive dysgenics weren't enough, the Democrats want to hasten the collapse of the USA by importing the Third World. Why? Because they will all vote Democrat. These are the reported numbers of illegal aliens in the USA. The true number is likely much higher, estimated at 50 million. You pay for them, and they overwhelmingly vote Democrat. Whites, those of European ancestry, those who founded the USA, are rapidly being replaced. To think that a nation can entirely replace their demographic makeup and remain the same is ludicrous, and we are seeing the results of diversity every day all around us. There is no benevolent intent here. The left does this solely to breed and import more low IQ voters so they can gain and retain permanent electoral majorities. This is not happening linearly, it is exponential. One need only visit a handful of formerly great American cities, Detroit, Birmingham, Newark, Memphis, to see evidence of demographic replacement for himself. Redistributive dysgenics is not just a U.S. issue, it is occurring globally in all countries of the West, Western Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Trillions donated to Africa has made no difference, and more won't either. Africa's population is exploding, paid for by your tax dollars. And they will not stay in Africa. They will cross the Mediterranean. They will cross the U.S. southern border. They are coming for the cities, the suburbs, and for rural America too. Let's take a look at our global IQs map again. And let's compare that to global redistribution and global birth rates. What will the future look like? The future world where your children and grandchildren will live in. Of course, the extinguishing of the European race was planned long ago and is in full effect in the UK. Why so many black and white couples in TV, movies, and ads these days? It's not an accident, it's brainwashing, and it's working. There is no end in sight to the demographic replacement occurring in Europe. Left unchecked, Europe and Africa will reach an equilibrium of similar races within a few decades. Of course, if any of this is brought up to a leftist, they will claim that the answer is more redistribution. Of course, $70 trillion isn't enough. Surely, a few trillion more will do it. The extinction of the European race is not only not a conspiracy theory, it is a mathematical certainty. The graph presented clearly demonstrates the trend. The future belongs to Africans. How did this start? As alluded to earlier, while redistribution is the main driver of dysgenics, it is not the only one. The Industrial Revolution caused downstream dysgenics for reasons previously discussed. Further technological advances, personal computers, the internet, smartphones, they all contributed. 1870 is when blacks were allowed to vote, and women's suffrage was granted in 1920. Both were catastrophic mistakes. Of course, the Immigration Act of 1965 opened the floodgates of the U.S. to the lower IQ Third World. However, it was the election of Barack Obama in 2008 and his oratory skills, which he used to divide the country and to stoke the flames of racial tension for his and his party's political gain, when the decline of the U.S. went into warp speed. Of course, the election of Joe Biden, very likely a stolen election in 2020, and his administration's divisive policies continues to fracture and harm the USA. Whatever you may think about the ethics of what the Democrats are doing, it is undeniable that their strategy is working. People of color overwhelmingly vote Democrat, blacks, Hispanics, and even Asians. And the sizable amount of whites voting Democrat? You guessed it, mostly women. Remember the mistake of women's suffrage? In addition to the racial and gender breakdowns, the Democrats have locked in the youth vote. Democrats won the Gen Z vote in every single state in the 2020 presidential election. Remember the vicious cycle of redistribution? Who is addicted to social media 24/7? That's right, young people. And they are being brainwashed by big tech to vote for the Democrats. And the Democrats are, in turn, redistributing your tax and inflation dollars to Gen Z and other low IQ voters, who are, in turn, spending those dollars on big tech. Again, you have to admit this is a brilliant racket. More of the same. People of color vote Democrat and women vote Democrat. This is a genetic, IQ, and hormonal issue. No amount of policy debates and reasonable conversations will change this. Squandering precious resources, doing so is a tremendous waste of opportunity cost. Again, young people overwhelmingly vote Democrat. Why do you think the Dems want to lower the voting age? There's a quote, "If you're not a Democrat before the age of 30, you don't have a heart. If you are a Democrat after the age of 30, you don't have a brain." Unfortunately, while that adage used to be true, today, the indoctrination of leftist ideology by big tech, the mainstream media, Hollywood, the marketing industry, public K-12 education, and universities is so complete that young people are not becoming more conservative as they age. Amazingly, they remain clueless leftists. And of course, this is worsening by falling IQs. We understand the quid pro quo going on here. Redistribution in exchange for Democrat votes. But the low IQ, dysgenic masses are oblivious to it. They are too busy with their bread and circuses, social media, superhero movies, degenerate reality TV, and junk food, the opiate of the masses. Bread and circuses kept the masses distracted during the final days of the Roman Empire, and they are accomplishing the same thing today. As for our elected leaders, they have plenty of issues to distract the masses with. Equity, diversity, inclusion, climate change, anything to keep their eyes off the single most important issue today, dysgenics. And our international competitors are waiting patiently, watching the left destroy the West from within, while they build up their economies and their militaries. China plans to win its 100-year marathon against the USA and the West, and this plan is progressing like clockwork. As the population increases and become more and more dysgenic in the USA and in Western Europe, what will we do with all these low IQ people who are incapable of taking care of themselves? That's right, 15-minute cities coming soon to a city near you, paid for by your redistributed tax dollars and by your inflation dollars. The dysgenic masses will get Inflation Reduction Act checks, so inflation won't affect them. Anyone who brings up issues of dysgenics, of falling IQs, of racial differences in intelligence or crime, or the fact that no multiracial or multicultural society in history has ever succeeded, is summarily canceled. Free speech was lost a long time ago. The soon-to-come CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, will allow for instant redistribution of your tax dollars to Democrat voters, out of your pocket and into theirs. The leftists are salivating at the prospect of CBDCs for this reason.